Hi everyone, it's Tom Kline. I'm pleased to be here to present strategies to build trust and de-escalate problems for the Digital Dealer Conference. Let me share my screen and off we go. First, you should have a process at the dealership to enable you to have a way to fix customer problems. There should be one person, or in this case, if you're the person, who should be fully empowered to make sure that you have the decisions and you can make decisions. One person should be responsible. One of the worst things that can happen is if you have to say, I have to check with my boss before I can do something. That's going to irritate the customer. So the person fixing the problem, I hope, will be the person who has the authority to do it. So that one person should be responsible. That person should have the authority to spend money. Before you meet the customer, you should try to investigate and get a sense of the situation. You won't have a complete understanding, but you should try to talk to the people involved. And once you have that understanding, it's important to then just pick up the phone, call the customer. If they don't pick up, leave a message. I'd leave one message about every 24 hours, and usually over a period of 2 or 3 days, they will call you back. You can leave things on the message like, I want to help you, I understand you have a problem, and I want to try to resolve it with you. These problems will come in sometimes through the CRM, sometimes from an email, sometimes from an internet post, sometimes from another manager, sometimes they'll be in the lobby and be upset. There's a whole different, there are all kinds of ways that it'll happen. But unless the customer is there, of course, leave them a couple of messages and generally they will call you back. Resolving customer problems takes time. This is not something that goes quickly. So I want to make sure that you, when you do meet with the customer, that you actually block out the time. I usually block out a whole morning. Try to set those appointments first thing in the morning. I set them first thing in the morning because they're usually not very pleasant. So you want to get that done, get it over with. But being with the customer takes time. So you want to call them, get them on the phone, and get them into the store. If they won't come into the store, it's important that you give them reasons why they should. And first of all, you cannot conduct business over the telephone. It's very, very difficult. And when you talk to the customer, you say to the customer, Mr. Customer, I really like to meet with you here. I understand you didn't have a good experience, but I have all my tools here. I've got my computer. If we need to cut a check, I can cut a check. We can get all these things done for you, but I can't conduct business on the telephone. In loss control, there's a saying that your first loss is your best loss. And what this means is if you're the first person to talk to the customer about their problem, you're going to be able to resolve it the least expensively than if you just let it be and let it fester or let somebody else at the dealership fix it. It's going to be more expensive because as time goes on, that customer is going to become more entrenched in terms of how they feel and what they feel like they deserve. So the quicker you can get to a customer and the quicker you can get to the bottom of the problem, then it's going to be the least expensive solution. When the customer comes into your office, it's important to find common interests. Just like when the sales agent is bonding with them when they're selling the car, you have to find the common interests. And those are usually pretty easy because the customer may be wearing a jersey with their favorite ball team on it, football team or baseball, or a hat, or they may have a purse that you like. You can give them a compliment. I really like your purse. Where'd you get it? Is there a story behind it? Their ring, their wedding ring. Find common ground. And you can't spend too much time bonding with the customer and talking about these things. It'll put the customer at ease It'll make them feel like you're a human versus just a robot. You want them to feel that you're a human. You want them to feel like you care. So I have on here on the slide, don't underestimate the value of chit chat. Take as long as necessary. Don't rush. You want to be relaxed. You want to make sure the customer feels like you're relaxed. Write everything down. We'll talk about that, not during the chit chat, but we'll talk about this in a few minutes. Brace yourself for inflammatory comments. They're coming your way. You'll hear things like, you people and your dealership and this guy tried to take advantage of me. Don't let those comments just roll off your back. Don't worry about them. Stay calm. Make sure you repeatedly say, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, your problem is important to me and I want to help you. When the customer comes in after you're done bonding, be quiet and be relaxed. Nod. Have them see that you understand what they're saying. Have open body language. Don't cross your legs. Don't cross your arms. Understand that, as I said, inflammatory things are coming your way. Don't take the bait. Don't feel that you have to defend the dealership. Now is not the time. You want to stay calm. Repeat that your problem is important and that you want to help. During the first meeting, you want to listen. Really important. You take notes, and I want you to take notes of absolutely everything that the customer says, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it's inflammatory, whether it's true, whether it's not. Write everything down. There will be some meetings that I have 15, 16, 17 pages of notes. Invest the time. When you invest the time here, it'll come out well on the other end. After you've told, after the customer has told you their story, I want you to literally go back and read all of your notes to the customer, page by page. Go through everything, and then you said this, and then you said that, and then you said the next thing. At the end of those 15, 16 pages, however long it is, you simply say to them, did I miss anything? And then if you did, write that down. Let them know that you, by making this much effort, by writing all these things down, it shows that you care. Feel free to interrupt, put your hand up and say, wait 1 second, I'm not sure I understood what you said. And then read back and say, you said that such and such happened. And have them clarify it as you go along. Let them know up front that you're going to interrupt them because you want to make sure you hear the whole story. So you say, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, I may interrupt you as we're going through this. Please, I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to make sure I'm understanding your perspective. And then after you've finished they finished going through it, show the customer how many pages of notes you've taken. This is part of them feeling heard, part of the disarming process, while you're nodding and saying, yes, I understand what you're saying. It's also important during the first meeting that you label the customer's feelings. Otherwise, they feel somewhat empty, and that's why I have the picture of the empty chair here. You say things like, I wouldn't want to go through that. That's really hard. That's aggravating, or that's frustrating. Label the feelings. It's part of the disarming process. You may be able to fix the problem at the first meeting. I'm going to encourage you not to, because sometimes customers are not invested enough in the process to be able to hear or accept a solution at the first meeting. At the first meeting, you want to simply say up front, you want to say, I want to hear your whole story. I'm going to go back. I'm going to make sure that I talk to everyone involved, tell them your perspective, and try to find out where the problem occurred. And then we'll talk about a solution, Mr. Customer. At the first meeting, set a time for the second meeting and set the expectations. The expectations here are, Mr. Customer, at that second meeting, I'm going to have some questions for you. I'm going to need some clarifications. I'm going to need to understand some further things. I'm not sure that we can fix things at the second meeting. We'll wait and see what my research finds out, but I'm interested in setting that now. So go ahead and set the second meeting at the first meeting. To be or not to be. This is just a quick reminder of what you should and should not do during the first meeting. Don't be defensive. Don't tell any half-truths because you'll lose any credibility that you build. Be true to your word. If you tell the customer you're going to call them, make sure you call them. If you say, I need to call you before the second meeting, which I don't recommend, but if you have to, say, I'm going to call you by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And then when you call, you say, now I told you I was going to call by 3. I did call you, didn't I? And they'll be on the other phone. They'll say, yes, you did. You want to correct any perceptions that are wrong. These are big ones, not little ones. You want to make sure that the customer doesn't wear a groove in something that's completely not true, and you know that's completely not true. Be careful about saying this at the first meeting. Depending on your rapport, you may choose to do that, or you may choose to wait to the second meeting. You'll have to be the judge of that. You certainly want to correct any errors. Assure the customer that you want to fix their problem, but don't overpromise. Do follow up and do reassure them. How to irritate a customer guaranteed. Number 1, failure to set your expectations. Brag. I've seen many people in these kinds of meetings that I've attended tell the customer what kind of lifestyle they have, how important they are. This is a real turnoff for a customer. Being inefficient is a turnoff. Pretending it's not your fault. Somebody else at the dealership created the problem, but if you pretend it's not your fault, you're going to create a bigger problem. Breaking promises, being insensitive, ignoring their issues, also all good ways to irritate a customer. Using the words, I'm sorry you feel that way, is nothing sets off a customer than you saying, I'm sorry you feel that way. If something happened that's wrong, you correct it. You say, I'm sorry, that's terrible. Saying I'm sorry you feel that way says the way you're feeling now is not correct. The way I know what's correct. And when you say, I'm sorry you feel that way, it's going back to being, it's really being pompous, and don't lack focus. The second meeting, you want to gather final information and achieve mutual understanding. That's the goal for the second meeting. The facts have to come out. Create documentation for the customer to see. I have on here, for example, text messages. Print them out and show them to the customer. Whatever the facts are, the second meeting is the time to present those facts. The facts could be documents or copies, documents showing the retail installment sales contract or the buyer's order or the odometer or the FTC buyer's guide, whatever it is. Have those ready to combat whatever the customer said at the first meeting. If you can prove it with documentation, quietly, calmly, and without tone, challenge their assertions with the facts. If you have any tone in your voice, that won't go over well. So make sure if you need to practice in front of a mirror, your cadence should be slow. Your tone should be matter of fact. Take your time when you do this. Don't be a fast talker. I'm trying to get through a lot of information here, so I'm talking a little more quickly than I usually do. But during those meetings, slow down. What do you do if you cannot prove the dealership's position? You're going to have to find a way to create documents or create something to show them. If it's in writing, it's more believable. So depending on what the facts are, you may have to create the documentation. Originals or copies. I learned long ago, if you're going to give them anything or show them anything, I suggest you don't give them anything. But if you're going to show, make sure it's a copy. I had a customer on one occasion that grabbed an original and ripped it in half. So I learned my lesson, and from then on, only show a customer a copy. And use the documentation as leverage. Second meeting mistakes, I started to talk about this. Mistakes happen, acknowledge them. Acknowledging the mistakes makes you human, it makes you trustworthy. Saying I'm sorry and I'm not sorry and I'm not sorry you feel that way. Disarm by telling the truth. Here's where we made the mistake. Here's what happened. and let the customer vent again if necessary. They may not have gotten all the venom out in the first meeting. So if they need to continue to vent, let them vent. If the customer repeats the same thing over and over, it's time to then put up your hand, like stop and say, now, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, I understand you're upset about this, but let's focus now on making you happy. You don't want them to wear a groove to where they can't get out of the emotion that they're feeling. So at the second meeting, it's time to tell them to let's move along. It's a good time to ask questions like, if I could do this, would that make you happy? Or if I could buy the unit back, would that interest you? Or what if I provided a service credit for you? Would that make you happy? Not sure what I'm going to do. Just want to run some of these things by you. What if I could sell you a different vehicle and take yours as a trade-in? Some of the solutions are not monetary. The last one on this slide says, how would you feel if I were your personal concierge during your ownership experience? So you could call me with any issues that you had and I would take care of them. I've had customers who love this. This is one of the many things you can do that don't cost any money, but that the customer appreciates. Think about how you can pamper the customer. Think about how can you make them feel important. At the second meeting, I like to say, to make you comfortable, whatever I offer you at the third meeting, I'm going to put that in writing. And there's reasons for that, which we'll get to in a few minutes. Don't be afraid to be creative. At the third meeting, I call it the buy-in. It's the customer buy-in, where you're trying to achieve mutual understanding. I like to present 2 or more solutions to these problems. When you present one solution, the customer feels like you are simply forcing something down their throat. When you present 2 solutions, it means it has connotations that you're open, that you're trying to work with them. You're not just trying to give them one thing. You give them 2 different things to think about. Sometimes they'll take the best of one and the best of the other one and try to combine them. Be prepared for that. Be prepared that they may do that. Sometimes that's a good solution. You'll have to make that determination yourself. Be creative based on their concerns. Whatever they're harping on, they'll usually tell you how to resolve the problem, either at the first or second meeting. Sometimes you can achieve what they want to. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's more complicated, or sometimes it's more money than you want to spend. And I have economic inequities are okay. And what that means is sometimes you can say, now, Mr. Customer, would you be happy if I made 3 payments on your car? Or would you rather have X dollars as a service credit? And the reason that there could be economic inequities there is maybe the payments are more money, or maybe you make the service credit more money. It's a good idea to consider making the service credit higher, because for every dollar that's spent in your service department, it probably only costs you 50 cents. So it's an easy way to kind of inflate the amount of money that the customer perceives that you're spending when you're really not spending that much. The third meeting, no agreement, no problem. If the customer, if you can't come to an agreement, so for example, if you present 2 solutions and the customer doesn't like either solution, schedule another meeting, schedule a 4th meeting. Let them know that you want to satisfy their concerns. Always act with kindness. A solution will present itself. No resolution. Make sure you're still patient. Be kind. Be understanding. Throw in extras. And what I mean, an extra is the next block up says lagniappe. Lagniappe is a Creole word that means something extra that you didn't bargain for. So throw in extras. Think about what you could do. So for example, you say to the customer, gosh, I'm sorry we didn't come to a resolution today. Here is a gift card for lunch. I like Outback Steakhouse. Everybody happens to like Outback, but whatever's close by, $25, you buy them lunch. Be flexible. If in the fourth and the fifth meetings. I've had meetings, or I've had customers I've had to meet with more than 10 times before we came to a resolution. If necessary, consider whether you need to turn it over to somebody. Maybe another voice helps sometimes. Usually by the time you've gone this far into 3 or 4 meetings, it's best that you finish it. But if you feel like you're just at a stalemate, it's always a good option. Consider changing the scenery. Take a walk together next time they come in. Eat together. Meet them at a restaurant. Nothing with alcohol, because that will not work well. But you can consider buying them lunch and talking through that way. Always be civil. Always be patient. Always be kind. I've brought this out of the archives. This actually is from my grandfather's Chevrolet dealership back in the 50s, back when things were a lot different. I just like this picture. I think it has connotations of a different time, but always be kind and civil and patient. It'll go a long way. When you do come to an agreement, shake hands, bump fists, bump elbows, let the customer know that there's some finality, that you've come to an agreement and that you're happy about it. And it's an important emotion, because if they then back out later, at a later time, you can say, no, wait a minute, we just shook hands on this. So that's the reason you want to do this. Consider putting the agreement in writing. The agreement, I call it a release, that says that this is all the money that you're going to spend, that you're going to do this to satisfy the customer, but the customer's not going to come back and ask for more. Check with your company lawyer about a very simple release agreement. You tell the customer this is both for you and for them, because you're going to put in writing exactly what you're going to do for them so that they have it and they can feel comfortable. And of course, you want to follow up and follow through and make sure that whatever you do put in writing gets completed. And wrapping up with the customer, I put this slide in case they posted an internet complaint. You want to be able to have them go back and update the update the review. It's important that they update it. That's because your future customers are going to see that you resolved it, and you want them to do it. You don't want to ask the customer to change their review, because they'll feel like the whole process was a manipulation in order to have them change what happened. You want to ask them to update it. You say, listen, this is my dealership. Seeing these online reviews hurts me, and would you please consider updating your review? Most of the time they will. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, please contact me. I'm happy to get it to you. You can find me on LinkedIn under Tom Kline, or go to the website, my website, Better Vantage Point, and find my phone number there. Thank you for listening. There's my email address, and I appreciate you taking time, and I hope this has helped. Thank you. Have a great day.